So several weeks ago, we started looking into the potential of purchasing an aircraft for the business, for the means of travel, just trying to get our COO and other executives out of the commercial airliners and these long travel days that they were having, and trying to streamline the process. So we started looking into see if purchasing an aircraft and putting up our own flight department really would make sense. Could we justify it? So here is just kind of the culmination of all of the research we did, along with a suggestion at the end. So we used a list of criteria to kind of put all this together and make our decision on it. Uh, Going into all of that process, we used a city pair analysis, a selection matrix, the total cost of operation, and market analysis. A big thing to point out here on the city pair analysis, here is just the COO's travel. Uh, Total right now, he's traveling over 750 hours, spending 55 nights away from home. With an aircraft, we could cut that down to 184, just about 185 hours, and only 7 overnights. That would give just the COO 48 more nights at home around the office. And the COO right now currently makes up roughly 25% of our total travel. So put that into comparison, lay it out, and look at everybody else that would also be traveling, and the savings would be substantial. And as I had covered in a previous presentation when covering the city pair analysis, we absolutely know that time is money. If we can save that time, it's added value back to the business, as well as the quality of life increase that we're looking at, not only for our COO, but for the other executives that are looking to travel as well. When putting together a selection matrix, there were several categories that we looked at. Along with the ratings that we gave them, again, these were all done by interviews that were done with individuals that would be utilizing the aircraft to kind of see what their key points were, what was really important to them. Being a growing company looking to expand into Oklahoma, it's no surprise that the overall cost really did play a factor. There were some people that had just a little bit of a concern on age. Overall value factor in the cabin volume and the wing load, not as big of a concern. So not so worried about the overall comfort of getting there, but what we're looking for really is just getting there. The total payload with max fuel played a little bit bigger of a part in it. We want to be able to do a little bit of be able to move some people around. And total range, again, most of our trips are really close, not a big deal. When comparing them all, we did direct operating costs at 300 nautical miles, which is representative of the vast majority of the travel that our company currently does. And then again, related to cost, we also looked at the total maintenance cost per hour. We're trying to keep the costs low. We want to make sure that this is an efficient way to move everybody around. So after the number guys punched in all the numbers, calculated everything up, here is the selection matrix score. With the high score being a positive and a lower score kind of being the negative. So you can clearly see here that the difference between the Pilatus and the Nextant is relatively substantial, with the Pilatus coming in up front out of all of the aircraft. Knowing that we put a substantial importance in the overall cost, cost of operation here was the next step that we took, really digging into things. Fixed costs between the TBM and the Pilatus really came in neck and neck at just over $200,000. The Nextant, surprisingly for a jet, was only 50 grand more. But as expected, and what we would typically expect out of jets, the Learjet was substantially higher at just short of $500,000. And again, with cost of operation, the hourly operating costs, again, the TBM and the Pilatus not a substantial difference between the two, little less than $100, but as expected, those jets came in quite a bit higher. But we wanted to look into these jets as well as the single engine turboprop just to really see what is the difference between the two. And after all the comparison, is it really going to make a lot of sense for the company to look at a jet or the turboprop? And without putting the two different types in comparison, we just really wouldn't have a solid concrete answer to that question. And with the hourly operating costs going up substantially for the jets, clearly here in the yearly cost comparison, you can see a difference. Now there does start to get a little bit of separation even between the TBM and the Pilatus, with right about 80 grand worth of cost more to fly a Pilatus over the TBM. So that is something that's going to go into our total decision making here at the end. The Learjet is just out of the question at this point in time. The overall cost for the year is going to be double of what the Pilatus is. And for the short trips that we're going to be taking, it just simply isn't going to be cost effective. But when we took a look at it overall, the last thing we looked at here with the cost of operation is the cost of utilization. And all of the aircraft quickly surpassed the charter. We did want to look into the possibility of getting a charter as opposed to purchasing our own. And when looking into it, by the time we reached 150 hours, even the Learjet was more cost effective than getting a charter for our flights. And the last thing we're going to look at here in our total decision making process is the market analysis. Trip time comparison. Again, we all know that jet is much faster, whether we take the Learjet or the Nextant. We will get there substantially faster on longer trips. So you can see here on a 1,000 nautical mile trip makes a big difference. On those short trips, not so much. We might save maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes on a trip overall, but it really is negligible when compared to the overall cost. And lastly, as part of our market analysis, we just wanted to take a look and see what are the specs of the aircraft themselves. The Pilatus and the TBM, our initial purchase cost, it is going to be about $800,000, a little under $800,000 difference to purchase. We have set aside $5 million as our initial payment for the aircraft, so we're good to go. But the Learjet, again, out of the question, way overpriced for what we're going to use it for. That substantial cost, it just doesn't justify it with the time that we'd be saving. So moving on down the list, range-wise, the aircraft that are really still in the running, pretty close to each other. The Pilatus is the slowest of the bunch, and but then that's kind of where things turn a little bit. The Pilatus is capable of having 7 passengers versus the 5 in the TBM. And for our travels, the majority of our trips are 3 or 4 people, but the flexibility to be able to move 7 versus 5 and have that ability for not much additional cost really is nice. And also for the long trips that we may take, if you look at the available payload with max fuel between the two, the TBM, you're lucky if you get 1 or 2 more people past a pilot. Where at least with the Pilatus, you'd be able to seat 3, 2 or 3 at least, along with the pilot, or 1 or 2 with a pilot and a co-pilot if we decided to go a 2-pilot route. So overall, looking at this here, we really are leaning heavily towards the Pilatus. So just to recap, everybody, again, we looked at the Pilatus PC-12, the TBM 930, the Nextant 400 XTI, and the Learjet 70. after reviewing all of the specs, all of the information, looking at the financials of it and the time savings, cost savings, for our company as we grow, the Pilatus PC12 really is the winner of this one. Between the TBM 930, again, like I mentioned in the previous slide, we're getting 7 passengers instead of 5 for those short trips that we may want to take additional people with, or perhaps we're traveling out and looking to bring back a couple of customers or people from another mine along with us. Without those extra 2 seats, the possibility wouldn't even be there. And for us, a company as a whole, that extra $80,000 is definitely worth it. Jump to a jet at this point in time with the close proximity of our travels, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's inefficient. And even the next ant is $300,000 a year extra just for the additional time that would be saved. The cost just simply isn't worth it. So as I mentioned here, the clear-cut choice for us right now, based on all of this, we should be looking to go ahead and purchase a Pilatus PC12, look to hire a chief pilot, and hit the ground running.